everybody. Welcome to Hope Something Sticks. I'm Burt.
And I am Comrade Matt.
And today we're going to be talking about isms.
Oh yes. The isms are coming.
Mm-hmm. There are the classics like capitalism, communism, socialism.
Communism? They could be here already.
Mm-hmm. Authoritarianism. Throw that in there too.
Yeah, why not? It's pretty tough to get past that step. It's warm, you know? When you get to the warm spot, you don't want to leave.
So, what ism do you want to talk about first?
In the beginning, the French decided to chop some rich people's heads off. So they got rid of feudalism and replaced it with capitalism. Would you agree with this assessment?
Yeah.
1818, Karl Marx is born, and after about 50 years or so of capitalism, he writes and observes about what he sees. And he's not terribly impressed. In fact, it's god-awful. Think that same stupid movie that everyone has to watch, Christmas Carol. That's what he sees. It's like you got your shitty boss, always on your case, and he won't fucking pay for any coal. Life sucks. Timmy can't afford a leg. A turkey is a Christmas bonus. That's how great everything was back then. So at the ripe old age of 30 years old, he writes the Communist Manifesto. It's a pretty socially upheaval type of time.
Mm-hmm.
Now what he gets to, and essentially galvanizes, is the idea of socialism. Now, before we get into some crazy definitions, let's keep it super simple. There's capital and there's social. Capitalism and socialism. One is based on, capital is the most important thing, whereas the social aspect is the most important thing in the other system. Would you get behind that?
I mean, well...
Yes! This is where we divide.
No.
That was fast.
Well, with kind of making it, I guess it's more something you could easily wrap your head around. Capitalism is the idea that things should be privately owned, such as, businesses, whatnot, services, that, people create a business and then they do business with other people and other businesses that are also created by people. Where socialism is where the government, the state, has ownership of a business that provides goods or services.
This is where I think everybody gets confused with socialism. Because socialism isn't that. That's state-run capitalism. And even Lenin called it that. After the Russian Revolution, 1917-ish, several years later, they overthrew everything, the people own everything, the people as the form of the government. They took over the government as the tool to get to socialism. But all they had was the government running everything, which is the authoritarianism part. So what they're supposed to do was use that tool to then distribute the goods, the services, the things.
What I describe as socialism isn't, by definition, authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is the state usually not, being an authoritarian, that they don't believe in individual rights and are typically keep control over, not being benevolent and people, liking the state. They keep control, by basically oppressing the people. And that's how they maintain control as opposed to being popular. So you could have a system run by the state but not be authoritarian.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples. You could look at pretty much almost anywhere in Europe. For the most part, for a lot of part, they're there. At least in some respects. Namely healthcare.
And here's the thing, when you're talking about socialist countries and capitalist countries, it's really just how much of one side you lean more towards. There's no, all those European countries like, Norway, Sweden, the UK, none of them are purely socialist in the definition that I gave. The state doesn't run everything. There are private businesses. There's just more socialist programs in these countries, such as healthcare, that the United States does not currently have. And the United States does have socialist programs because you have state-run military. Can't have a private military force. Can't have a private police force. There's no such thing as I'm aware of as a private fire department. You have public libraries. That's socialism. Public parks, socialism.
We do have
national.
We do have socialized healthcare. It's just for old people.
Yes.
They're really down with that.
We also have socialized investing, which is the Social Security.
Yeah.
Social, right there. So you could say the United States is a socialist country. It's just what people put down as the most important socialist service, healthcare, which people do. That's basically what they differentiate socialist countries from a capitalist country in practice. Because what makes a country a socialist country? Because I just said the United States has many social programs.
I don't know. Maybe a percentage.
Is a social program.
That's like asking, okay, where are you on the spectrum of how gay are you?
Yeah,
you 50 or you get to be 51%, then bam, that's it. You're socialist.
We're a little bit less socialist than the UK, which is a little less socialist than Norway.
Right, they're all on the road to socialism. And they're getting there. And they're using the government as a tool to get there. Communism was the ultimate goal. Or not the ultimate goal. At least Stalin just said, hey, this is communism. We're there. We made it. And he basically just fucked everything up.
Well, communism is pure socialism, and everyone gets the exact same thing. So there's no, say, upward mobility from a wealth standpoint in pure communism.
Right.
Everyone gets paid the same amount. Everyone has the same everything, which everything is made by the government anyway. So you have your, however many government TVs you are allocated, and government couches and chairs, and the houses would be all basically the same. Maybe you get a bigger house depending on how many kids you have, or whatever. But yeah, so that's why there's actually never been a actual communist country. Communism has been used as a veil for authoritarian dictatorships.
Right, yeah. Stalin started that. He said, no, we're there. This is it. All your suffering, because it would have taken more suffering at that time. It would have taken more effort. And so he said, screw it. We've got power. I've got power. We're going to keep this whole I run the military thing. And also we're going to dictate how many pigs you're allowed.
But I get the most pigs.
Right.
Me and
It's
my
very
buddies.
important because we're still kind of on the road to it. And of course, if you're an authoritarian, it's a lot easier to stop anybody else from arguing the point. All argument stops, and then that's where everyone gets all freaked out. Well, mostly because of the money, but there's also the suspension of human rights. Because if there is no man, there is no problem. That's Stalin.
Yeah.
I think he killed 60 million people. Ish.
Yeah, he killed a lot.
Yeah.
He's killed the most people.
Yeah. I think Mao comes up after him. I can't remember. Yeah. Ruthless.
Yep. But, because of what communism is and, the thought that everyone gets the same amount regardless of their aptitude, skill, or anything, just doesn't appeal to people in general, and that's why you can't have it on such a large scale. The largest scale you can have is a community, and I think the best example that I've seen is the Kibbutzim in Israel, which are basically communist communities where everyone gets the same thing and they produce something to maintain itself.
Unless you
Of
have
course.
what's the word again? Politska?
Protexia.
Unless you have protexia, then you get to drive the tractor.
Yeah.
That story's fantastic.
Yeah.
You want to throw in the fantastic story here to give everybody some context?
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure most people know that Israel as a modern state is pretty young. So young that the very first prime minister of Israel was alive at the same time my dad was, much older. But when my dad was in Israel for high school, one of his teachers was the first prime minister of Israel, David Ben Gurion, and also it was like it was kind of like a mix between high school and kibbutz, and Ben Gurion liked it there, so he stayed there and taught there. So my dad was working with him on the farm, and they were harvesting whatever crop they were harvesting. And so David Ben Gurion was driving the tractor with the carriage, and my dad would be picking up the crops and throwing them in, and a whole bunch of dust gets blown into my dad's face from the tractor. And so my dad tells David Ben Gurion, it's like, hey, how come you get to drive the tractor and I'm stuck here behind you getting dirt shoved in my face? And then he turns to my dad and said, well, I have protexia. You get protexia, you drive tractor.
There you go. There's communism in a nutshell. Everybody's equal, but some are more equal than others. Like, if you're happen to talk to George, if you're talking to George Washington.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and they were really big into it. The kibbutzim. They even had like pictures of like Stalin and Mao and other communist leaders.
Awkward.
Well, it was really awkward after the Yom Kippur War, where Israel was supported by the United States and all the Arab states were supported by the Soviet Union.
Yeah, doubly so.
And during the war, they heard Russian being spoken, over the radio waves. They were giving tactical advice, to the Arab countries. So they basically helping them out. Dad actually found a comm station where where Russians were stationed, and also ran across a Chinese fighter pilot whose plane got downed, and then they went over to the plane crash, and the pilot took his sidearm and shot at the tanks. He was in the armored division for a while until he ran out of ammo. And then they just took him and just kept him in prison for the rest of the war.
Damn.
So after the war, all the soldiers went to the posters in the kibbutzim and just tore them all down. It's like, nope, none of that shit. It's like, these assholes were trying to kill us. Like, oh, all right. Can we still be communists? Yeah, but no more of this. No more posters.
Apparently, it's a free country. For now.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Alright, so fast forward to today, and we've had, let's see, 3 major economic collapses in the last 80 years or so. 2 of which happened within the last dozen years. Granted, one was caused because of an international plague, but
Yep.
doesn't mean it wasn't exacerbated. And doesn't mean it's not still going to... I have no idea where the hell we're going. We are still in the midst of a very frothy market. And even more so now because of the whole... the Reddit community.
Yeah.
A bunch of internet trolls decided to swim in the same direction and tanked an entire hedge fund. Let me tell you something. I've been smiling all week. I don't necessarily agree with what they're doing, other than this is awesome. And the most powerful... I mean, the true definition of that word is awe. Is just fear. It's just, oh my gosh. It's like staring at the sun too long. What are you doing? And that's all they want to do. They just want to fly a rocket ship right into the sun and say, well, you know what? I'm dead anyway. Like, I got nothing to live for. They just gave me this $600 check for no... wait. Yeah. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. Well, it'll definitely make hedge funds think twice about shorting stocks.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, it's truly abused, the whole short game, but it's also one of the best forms of accountability you could ever hope for. Like, AMC and GameStop are shit companies.
Yeah.
And, but, them doing it to companies like Bed Bath & Beyond was only taking advantage of the context that they have to work in. The pandemic closed stores. People couldn't go out and physically shop. So it naturally hurt the business, and so they're just banking on an odd, a shitty situation. It's not fair. Capitalism ain't fair. Sometimes it is. But other times it's more opportunistic than anything else.
Well, in the case of GameStop, you could also make the argument that they are in a situation that's not fair because their whole business model is predicated on people coming in, selling their used games, and then selling them their used games, and then they sell those used games to other people for a higher price. That's like a huge part of the business model. But now that there's more digital purchases of games, you don't have that as much. So, and eventually it'll be pretty much all digital, and then then they basically have no business, and there's be nothing differentiating them really from any of the large retailers like Walmart, Target, whatever, who sell physical copies of games themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
you know,
There's a company on the way out.
What makes them special is dying off because of technology. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, and there were a number of other companies that got shorted. So
yeah,
they just happened to pick the one that was most likely to get shorted. The company, the Citron Research, Citron. That was the research company that was posting. They posted short seller reports. Like, these are the companies that are next up on the list, as it were. You know, like, these companies weren't random, and they did research on. Okay, these are the companies that these massive hedge funds are making the biggest bets on, so you should probably follow suit. They're not posting short seller reports anymore.
Yeah,
They stopped doing that 2 days ago due to a shift in how things are done. Like, all right, this is what the market wants. This is what the market wants. And the CEO still adamantly believes that they did more for keeping companies accountable than any regulation ever could have. So take that with whatever kind of grain of salt you want. Yes and no. Yes and no, guy. Yes and no. Like, go back to your fucking hot tub on the roof or whatever the fuck you guys do. Dipping your balls in cocaine, rubbing them all over each other. Some of us do our business out in the open.
Let's just talk to Crumpopulous Michael right out in public in a garage, selling them weapons.
Women,
Not shady.
Old people, children, doesn't matter. Just likes killing.
Yeah. Also likes giving his card out with his GPS coordinates.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. This has been your Rick and Morty reference. Good luck finding the episode.
So, about it. Then,
yeah, that's it.
That's it.
That's where we are.
Well,
Deal with it. We're boned. I don't think anybody understands it. Where we are now is socialism is now and has always been the big scary word. And it's just a scary word where everybody gets lumped into one thing, and it's bad. Even though almost every country on Earth utilizes it in some way, shape, or form.
Every country on Earth utilizes it because every country on Earth has a military.
Okay, well,
Except I guess the Vatican.
Costa Rica doesn't have one. Ha!
But even they have like a police force. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah, so it's bullshit, you know? Follow the money. Who's getting paid by whom?
Yeah, I mean, people get worried about socialism because of socialist authoritarians, which, yeah, there's that, but you don't necessarily have to worry about that in every country. Like this one, you know, it's not the same as Venezuela. So, I mean, I'm for putting in more social programs, like having a public option for healthcare. But I think more so than socialism, I think just appropriate government oversight.
Yeah, capitalism left
is
to
important.
run amok is exactly what you're seeing. Is just this is
look
at what happens when all the fish decide to swim in the right direction. Let's just say a direction.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of the issues, like the George Bush recession, it wouldn't have helped that it was, you know, if the country was more socialist. It would help if there was more government oversight over the the housing markets.
Yeah, and you can go back even further. I mean, they've been deregulating the stock market since the 80s, since the 70s. Ever since they wanted to get away, they wanted to get away from Keynesian economics, and then they fucking went to this.
Yeah. And it doesn't make it not capitalist just because you have government oversight. The government still doesn't control it. It just, there's a certain amount of regulations so that people, in positions of power, don't abuse it to an insane degree, because they could without, oversight. Like, once you get to a certain point, like, Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or, these multi-billionaires that have a huge part of a certain industry, if you didn't have any kind of oversight over them, they could just run amok, basically.
Yeah, they could do.
You'd have go back to the time of the country where you just have basically like barons essentially of business that completely undermine the working class because hey, you want to get paid, you're gonna have to get dicked over by one of us. That led to the creation of the unions, more government oversights, and now the current Republican Party is very much in favor in taking away a lot of the government oversights. And I think that's the main issue.
We can either. So how do we go about it? How do we get rid of them?
Well, I think get rid of who?
Let's just say them. Anybody who, let's say, was working in the industry that they now deign needs to be regulated, and is now the regulator for that industry. This constant swinging door between industry and government has got to stop.
I mean, you can do it with regulations, but then again, the business and government are so intertwined now, it's kind of hard to separate that out.
Well,
but the people but the people currently in government but aren't in bed with businesses are thought of, and sometimes are, on the fringes of the political spectrum, both on the right and left. Don't have much in the way of centrists that are not in the pocket of businesses.
Yeah, that's another one. Donations need to be capped. Campaign contributions need to be capped. And they need to be 100% transparent. Ever since Citizens United, oh boy. It's been nothing but dark money this whole time. Right, left, up the middle.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's usually where we end up.
Well, for the individual, the best thing you can do is to make enough money so that it doesn't matter.
This is true, yes. Keep running away from poverty as hard and fast as you can.
Because once you get there, it doesn't really matter what politicians do, until they do something like really, really drastic.
Yeah, that completely upends your industry.
Upends your industry, or I was thinking, basically, government revolution.
Yeah, those are the only two options you got. You can either vote them out or chop them out. Remove them violently. Yep. Or you can just ask them to leave,
Yeah, no, that'll work. So, yeah, basically, if you're in a position where the going-ons of the government, actually matters to you, all you gotta do is make more money, and then none of that matters. Simple. Just have more money, so it doesn't matter.
GameStop. That's it. That's where we are. Like, oh, just make more money? Okay. Alright. I had to have an existential breakdown on the way.
Mm-hmm.
The road there is littered with them. Alright. I think you could just you overlay the Russian national anthem as we fade out here. I mean, Lenin is fucking so happy right now. Must crush capitalism.
Alright. Well, I think that'll just about do it for us. Yep. Pretty short episode, but next time we can talk about, I don't know, episode 5 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that'll work. Something we're both much more knowledgeable on.
Mm-hmm. Alright, everybody. Well, you can write us in at hopesomething@gmail.com. And until then, I don't know, do whatever the hell you've been doing.
Yeah, no doubt. Get off your asses. Let's go write that book. Or make that art.
Yep.
Make some art. Not enough art.
Yep. And yeah. Alright, bye everybody.
Mm-hmm.